Hello, everyone. This is JPO, and today I'm joined with,
Christopher!
and we are podcast name in brackets.
In
Hello, Christopher.
brackets.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I got one little exciting thing for me personally, and I just want to share real quickly.
Go ahead.
Um, I've been wanting to get back to YouTube. Um, I've probably said, have I said that to you? I probably have.
You have.
Yeah. So I wanted to do my move first. I unfortunately am not able to film at the moment. I don't have a table. My room is a little crowded. But I have enough old content for me to edit. And I hate releasing old content. It's not current. It's not that I look different. But it's just like if someone attacks me for something I said, I am not in that mindset anymore. Or
Right.
maybe my beliefs have changed. But I really want to get back to YouTube. So honestly, I have conceded against myself and decided to edit some of the videos I recorded a year ago.
Very nice.
If this becomes such a situation, I may consider going back further. I am not there yet, but I am.
Going back further, deep into the archives,
Yeah,
down to the metadata where you'll find our video.
exactly. And I mean, I'm not positive I'll release it, but definitely, if I go back and I find the video, I definitely will send it to you. Even
Right.
if I don't, I'll one of these years go back and find it and send it to you.
Yes.
Um,
You had a little oopsie where your Patreon video was released.
I, yeah, you saw.
I watched it. Yes.
Okay. Aw.
Like you were talking about things about Patreon. It's like, he does know this is on YouTube, right?
I
But
uploaded it on my phone and I
mhm.
clicked unlisted. Some stupid how it went public.
Mm.
I have no idea how or why, and that was not how I wanted to get back into things. But hey, I'm not mad that you watched it. I hope it was fun.
Sure. Yeah. Oh
But
no, yeah, you had like a very interesting concept
mhm.
of like word association with songs. It was like, that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
Like
there.
I don't think I could do that, but that is pretty neat.
I've been wanting to do it with people for so long.
Right.
Like I've had this idea since. Well, okay, the video idea is not mine,
Mm.
but I've been wanting to do it for my channel since 2018. That's how long I've been holding on to the idea, and I've never ever done it. Period. So I really just wanted to get that out of my system, even if it was. Because why was it Patreon? Because it was such a low key video. No quote effort went into it. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So I didn't want it
Just the
to be
people who will
released
pay for
public.
it will get it.
Yes, exactly. Just
You
one
pay for low
dollar.
effort.
Exactly. $1 a month makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yesterday I finally got down and dirty and
Mm.
edited a video, and I may, I'm very strongly considering releasing it tonight.
Okay.
So, which is so crazy for me. Yesterday was just like a bit of a trial of getting back into the mental headspace of editing.
Right.
So there are moments when I was in it, and moments I wasn't, and moments I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening, and moments I'm like, I'm sick of this, I hate it. Um, but I was able to get the video exported. It took like 9 hours because of it running off my hard drive, specific effect I had in the video. Um, but while I was watching my movies last night, which we will get to very, very soon, uh,
Yes.
that's pretty much our episode today.
I mean, I also have things
Okay,
to say, but yeah.
gotcha. But yeah, so it's just kind of exciting for me to get back into this because I've been wanting to get back into this. I don't know, quote, how consistent but also I'm not gonna play it off like the YouTubers of like, hey, I know I was gone for so long and I hope to be back forever, but that's not gonna happen. I just want to just appear. That was another thing why I didn't want the Patreon video to be public. And I just wanted to just rant my feelings to nobody, essentially, about me coming back and such. So, yeah, it's kind of exciting just for me. Probably the only days I'll really edit will probably be my day offs, maybe. Who knows? I think it could be very well possible that some days, especially during this rehearsal time, when I come home by 6, that I would have, say, a few hours between coming home and bed if I'm up to it to edit. I want to get into this mental state that I can edit. Because honestly, coming back into this, it was hard because I was forgetting some things, and I'm like, how did I do that? And that was another thing why I want to get back into YouTube, to stay fresh on my craft, so that when I did get a job in this, or just in general, just to keep my skills fresh.
Really? Stay fresh on Minecraft?
What?
I know what you said. Minecraft.
Yes. Yes, John, I've changed.
You're a
Yeah.
Minecraft YouTuber now.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Just wanted to get that off my chest. I'm kind of excited, nervous, and I know I'm not coming back to a lot of fanfare, but this is kind of more for me. Obviously, to grow and, to produce content for people, but also this is for me. So this. Yeah. All right, that's pretty much except for work. Work has been great. Until we get to our main topic, that's it. Your turn.
So, since we last talked, we were talking about my potential visiting.
Oh, yeah.
And then what we would do.
Yes.
Mainly, like,
Have
most
you been
likely
too
watching
excited about
Star
that?
Wars. I mean, I am excited about that. I have been scrounging through and detailing the Clone Wars this past week, trying to find the bare minimum needed to experience this show and how we can get it onto the movies.
Okay.
So I've been hard at work and trying to find it. Because, like, I have my list and I have, like, oh, here's this basic list. And I just been pushing, really thinking about each episode and being like, okay, what do we need from this? Is this important? There's so many just really good episodes that's like, this is such a good episode. But
it doesn't play into the story.
It's not, I mean, it's not gonna, you're not gonna miss anything if you don't watch it
Right.
for the rest of the series. It just gives you more.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, oh, okay, well, you can go. You sit there. On the rewatch, you'll come back, but right now, you're just there. Sad boy. And then there's just episodes where like, oh, you don't need to watch that. And then I rethink them. It's like, oh, maybe you actually do. Okay. And so, like, right now, it's like, do we have even time to do this? Because there's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So are you adjusting the Star Wars list, essentially? Kind of like adding, there is a side note with the list?
Of my Star Wars list?
Yeah.
Heck no. Heck no. Like, if you have the chance, watch the full series.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why I'm adjusting this is because if we're there in person together, like, it's going to take a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Probably,
seasons.
I'm not even thinking that we're going to be able to finish it.
No, you're staying until we finish.
Right. there's also the thought where if I'm not able to stay until we finish, we could just call each other and watch it at the same time.
Yeah. Or at the very least, well, you want to see my reactions. That's the thing. Okay, never mind. Me and my friend at the very least have been like texting each other while we watch.
Like you call, you just show me your face.
Okay.
We just sync up our Disney Plus episodes. And
we could do that. Wait. Disney Plus actually has a group watch feature.
It does, yes.
Well, okay. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But it has that
when we get there, yes.
I just hope it works because I've never tried it. I bet it does, but also Disney Plus is not made for it to be Skype. You know what I mean? So honestly, I almost feel like we would go.
I don't get what you mean.
I'm almost wondering, should we just go down? We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
We'll cross it when we get there. We still have a few months till we get there. But yeah, I've just been rethinking. I've also just been watching the behind the scenes of the episodes. That has really helped me like understand if this is important or not. Because some episodes I'm like, oh, we don't need to watch that. But then the creators explain why they do this thing. It's like, wow, it's like, I didn't think of that. Yeah, that's very important, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So
what season are you in currently with this skim through?
I'm not like watching anything.
Okay.
I'm looking at the episode titles, the descriptions. I'm watching the behind the scenes because the behind the scenes is like my way of watching it. I'm still watching it in Spanish, so I'm still in season 1 for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Gotcha. Wow, you're going all in on this.
It's because I really love this show.
I don't blame you.
And it's like I really want this experiment to work because very, very few people have watched Star Wars for the first time with this chronological viewing of Clone Wars in between the two movies. It's always been an after the fact. And I'm really curious how the layers of the show will be applied to the movie if you see it for the first time.
Gotcha.
And I can concede and let you just watch the movie afterwards, like just without watching the show. But
I'm
rare opportunity.
Now, if we had the time, obviously I would rather just watch the whole Clone Wars, right? But we don't, because freaking life and 7 seasons. So I am willing. I typically don't like doing this, I think, kind of obviously, but I'm willing enough to be your guinea pig.
Yeah, you don't like being a guinea pig?
I don't know. I don't like hopping. I know even if we hit the necessary parts, I still don't like hopping around like that, you know?
I know. Which is why I suggested, like, if we don't want to hop around, we could just start it and then finish via virtual.
We'll see. Is the pilot episode part of? Is the pilot episode an important episode?
Meaning what? Pilot episode?
First episode of the first season of the show.
The first episode of the first season? Yeah, but that's not the pilot.
Oh, frickin'.
The Clone Wars movie is technically the pilot.
Okay, well, I remember there being a Clone Wars movie, only to find out that there's also a show, and so that's never been helpful for my brain. Okay, so tell me the status of this freaking movie.
So the Clone Wars movie was essentially supposed to be like the first 4 or 5 episodes of the show. But then like George Lucas came and said like, hey, we're turning this into a movie now. And so they just had to reformat into a movie, and then everything else was the show.
So technically, the movie are the first episodes of the show that aren't existing as episodes of the show.
Yes. But
Is
chronologically, there's a couple episodes in the show that appear before the movie.
Is this movie part of this viewing?
Yes. The movie is one of the most important part of the viewing.
Is the movie first in this viewing?
Right now it's second.
So one episode beforehand.
Yes, maybe.
I know Star Wars isn't that complicated, but it just feels like it.
It gets more complicated.
No.
Like if you're viewing it just the way it normally aired, it gets complicated by the third season, because then they'll just be like, hey, we want context for a lot of the episodes beforehand, so we'll do like prequel episodes.
What?
And they're not bad. Most of them are just
You know
delve
what?
into
The more you talk about this, the more I actually want your stupid hop around.
Right. Like one of the ones that are definitely the least on this list is the political episodes. And it doesn't mean like modern politics. It's just talking about the politics within that universe at that time, because that is partially important, but I don't think you'd care to think about that for first viewing. So
That's fair.
like that's like a second viewing type thing where you really look back and see like, huh, okay, yeah. Even though yesterday I watched Revenge of the Sith.
You're on a roll.
I am. I love that movie enough to just watch it when I feel like it. But like I watched Revenge of the Sith plus
Is that your favorite Star Wars movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Growing up it is, yes. And like the finale of the Clone Wars, because like they take place at the same time. And so I'm actually like watching both at the same time, like pausing one, start the other, trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. It's not going to happen when we watch it.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like
because like I think it just breaks a lot of the tension.
Uh-huh.
There would probably be only like one pause. Yes, because I want that to be out of your mind. It's complicated,
We'll
Christopher.
get there when we get there.
I'm still working on the details, but like
so with the Sith movie and the Clone Wars ending, do you want to do the movie first and then the Clone Wars ending?
So like the way it works is that the Clone Wars ending is like a 4-part episode series.
Mm-hmm.
So like looking at it, you can watch the first part and then start the film.
Okay.
Because the first part leads into the film, essentially.
Okay.
And then halfway through the film, you pause and get into the second part.
Okay.
And that's probably the best way to do it, because the entire time you're going to be thinking about this other plot going on.
Okay.
And with that pause, you have a solution, and then the last 2 episodes you can just watch after the movie.
Yeah.
That to me is the best way to do it. Or you just do the first episode, watch the film, and do the last 3.
Uh-huh.
That's the easiest without pausing. But
I'm not against pausing.
We'll see.
That's definitely when we get there.
We'll see. Like I believe like the first episode and then pausing least the way I have it described in my list.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
That's-
it is a complicated thing to think about.
Yeah.
What works, what can be sacrificed. I mean, there's it's a thing. But hey, like, it'll be fun. I'm excited for this. I really am.
I feel nervous because me and my brother have joked around that we haven't lost our Star Wars virginity. This is exactly what that feels like. I am not gonna lie.
Oh, it's okay.
Like this like sense of nervousness of what I'm getting myself into. You should cut that. That was more for you than for anything.
I'll write this down
Thank you.
because we just made it so awkward.
We did. Sorry.
Editing notes. Oh, sticky note. All right.
Speaking of awkward, X-Men Apocalypse. I'm kidding. We'll get
Let's
there.
talk about the X-Men movies.
Okay, so
we didn't really get to talk about it in depth last time. You just talked about your first general thoughts.
Yeah. So here's. Well, I watched the original trilogy. That was the only X-Men movies I'd seen when we originally talked.
Yes.
And I will just throw this out there. We watched these X-Men movies in the span of a week and a half.
Nice.
They're kind of blending in together. I'm kind of losing focus of what movie was what.
Okay.
Especially as it relates to the original trilogy. And kind of thankfully, we did talk about the original trilogy last time.
Yeah.
So hopefully I don't have to elaborate too much. But
okay.
I
think you talked the most about the first one.
Did I?
Yes. And then the other two, you said, oh, I like this one more, I like that one more.
Yeah.
And then we just moved on.
Let me see if I can reach back into there.
So the first one, we reintroduce our characters.
Yes.
It's Magneto and the Statue of Liberty. That's the first film.
As much as it's not a great movie, it sets up things very well, dare I say.
Yes.
Like if what wants a concept of the X-Men, that's the only movie you need.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things that's it's better to experience like, oh, these are the characters from the comics. Like, they're getting a live action appearance, even though really Wolverine is the only one who gets all the screen time in these films and done quote unquote justice.
Yeah. Speaking about characters being done justice, Cyclops is words I should not say. Because
his powers are utilized.
Yeah, but
enough.
my friend that I was watching this with, he's like, as we're starting the movie, he's like, oh my gosh, Cyclops is like my favorite from the comics. And they made him so unlikable in these movies. In the first off, the most 2000s way, but sadly, they never redeemed him, including in, was it Dark Phoenix? Was Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. Like, both those movies, he's still the same guy, essentially. Mm-hmm. And it got on my nerves so much. Anyways, and then also, I feel like I'm kind of overarching about trying to get specific, but I probably won't. Anyways, I hate to compare this with the MCU, and this is essentially my thoughts, with exceptions that I may bring up. But throughout the X-Men movies, they present characters not. Wow, that was actually the same word I was going to repeat. They present characters, but not characters. At the same time. When you compare it to the MCU, especially
they present the figures, but not in-depth characters.
Yeah, they feel more like the MCU. They feel more like people. Again,
Right.
that was the thing that got me hooked with Iron Man. It was the character of Tony Stark that I saw so much of myself in, and despite knowing the ending of Endgame, made me sob like a baby. But X-Men, I not only is well, okay, I never get that for essentially any of the characters, and that, and not to mention the fact that Wolverine is obviously the main character throughout all this, and they've never given me a heart-to-heart kind of emotional connection throughout, honestly, this whole thing.
Yeah.
The one movie that won me over to Wolverine, and people will be very surprised by this, is Origins, Wolverine Origins,
Right.
where that movie was a pure struggle, pure thrill ride, him on the run. He was the only good guy. You had no choice but to cheer him on, and made him look like such a cool guy. And I love that, and that completely won me over to him.
Even though it's a very 2000s movie, very cliche with all the attributes to it.
Yeah, but it also was distinct enough from the original trilogy in terms of 2000s. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They have different 2000 vibes.
Right. It was also like when that movie came out, all of the stuff in that movie was just so old by that point. Like people were just done with all those tropes.
And for me, I've not watched a lot of movies like that, so it felt fresh enough for me. But yeah, so that character, and then the second movie that there being emotional connection would be Future Past. However, what I would say about that is also an overarching thing for the X-Men. The main emotional connection is cheering on our heroes in their struggle. I can never say, oh my gosh, I relate to Wolverine so much, I relate to Charles X so much, and so on character. But the struggle that they go through, their mission, whatever they're trying to accomplish, that's the only thing that makes me connect emotionally, if I do, and cheer them on. And Future Past is its own kind of like thrill ride, and you're going against time, essentially, and that made me, get in the movie that much. And then the third emotional movie would be Logan, due to the way it was done.
And also the nature of what it meant.
Yeah, and I will get into that later as we go through these movies one by one. And so, apparently
the first one,
the first X-Men movie, you mean?
Yes, the first X-Men movie.
I was about to say, oh my gosh, I touched on the trilogy. Nope, I just touched on the first one and went overarching again.
Yeah, so the first one, Rogue, being the character that we view this world from.
I didn't like how they played around with the idea of her being a potential romance character to Wolverine. I didn't like that.
I think it is strange.
Yeah.
I mean, also considering like she's a young girl versus how she is in the comics, where she's a little bit older. She's also very underpowered in these films.
Okay.
Way too underpowered.
Interesting.
To the point where like she's practically useless in the other two films. Here, like, oh, she's introduced to the world. The villains have a point for her. Like, she's one of the main characters. The other two, she just takes like a backseat.
Yeah.
And is almost not even needed in those films,
Mhm.
which is sad because she's actually a really cool character.
Hmm. Yeah, I probably said this on the podcast before, but when you have so many characters, it's hard to give them all their due.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, it's almost sad that the X-Men movies are more of the Wolverine movies.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Like I know the actual Wolverine movies, dare I say the trilogy, is like it. I feel like it focusing on Logan, the character, it does it well. It's really weird as it's interlaced in the X-Men movies, but also it kind of makes sense. And I
Yeah.
don't blame them
It also, like, he became everyone's favorite character
from the
after the
first
first
movie.
film. After the first film, he's like everyone's favorite character.
Yeah, but they made everyone else kind of unlikable except for
And
X.
so they made him like the picture of all the other films. The face of the series, essentially.
But they also set him up to be with that first movie, besides X and Magneto.
Yeah.
Because they made Cyclops the moron. You can't have the girl be the lead. And then with that, Rogue didn't, because she's
Storm.
not as old as Wolverine, she can't be in a romance with him. So Jean became the side piece.
Yeah, Storm has all that power, but like she doesn't use it to her full advantage
She's
until the
also
plot needs it.
yeah, she's only used it. The plot needs it.
Yeah, like the Jean and Wolverine thing is actually a constant thing in the comics. It's actually a big part of the show as well.
I bet. I believe it. And like I think the Wolverine movie like kind of capitalized on that a bit. Um, it's a really interesting dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you think about X3. Honestly, I just referred to the original trilogy, X1, X2, X3.
Okay,
Um,
even though X3 is actually
the
just
less than,
yeah.
but X3 just rolls off better.
Yeah.
Anyways, but by the way, X2 is called X-Men Unite. Isn't that funny to think
I
about?
don't even consider that.
I know, right?
I just call it X-Men 2. I don't even think about the full title. Even though the third one I know as The Last Stand.
Uh-huh.
Because like it really does feel like The Last Stand by the end.
It with X3, like it was kind of funny, call it what you want, with killing Cyclops so early.
Oh,
And then, then Wolverine was free to pursue Jane romantically, even though that wasn't the focus of the movie, right?
sure.
And so you kind of feel like, yay, I don't have that burden anymore. But then he has to lose what he loves at the end of that. And he never gets that. That's the saddest thing about Wolverine is that, except for his 6 retconned years in Origins, he can never catch a break in his life. It's pure war.
Well,
his whole life.
like Wolverine has always had love interests in the past
Uh-huh.
that don't work out for reasons. But like I don't know, this one I seen maybe was just like the most personal to him. Who knows? I don't know.
With Jean?
Maybe it's just the one that we're watching right now, essentially.
The character Jean?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. Like, in some ways, they did the character of Wolverine justice, and in other ways, it's more like just the whole movies as a whole throwing Wolverine into that, and it's just weird.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll preface, we're not there yet, but that was part of my issue with Logan, is that not just the movies before, but that movie itself he just isn't consistent enough of a character for me to latch onto him.
Yes, but that one there are reasons for stuff, but we'll
We
talk
can
about
get
that
there.
later.
Anyways,
We'll
sorry.
talk about
Kind
that
of back to the first movie again.
I guess like there's.
It-
I mean, we talked about that the most, so
We did. Again, just to throw out a few things, it just feels, I'm repeating, whatever. Quite 2000s. The romance is 2000s. The climax scene is just happens. The music is so bland and not mixed well. It again, it sets the concept. Again, I'm comparing it to essentially the MCU. I'm essentially comparing it to, honestly, movies in general. I don't have that perspective of, oh my gosh, I've read these comics when I was little, and now I'm seeing them on the big screen for the first time. Whoopee. I'm very much judging it, number one, as a Marvel movie in comparison to the MCU, and number two, just as a movie in general. And it doesn't check all my boxes. And I will just say about just movies in general as it relates to the MCU. The MCU is such a style, and partially I like that style. It's, like I say, it's hard for me to want to watch things. The MCU is just easy for me to get into because I kind of know what to expect. Obviously, stuff like upcoming Moon Knight and She-Hulk are going to be very different from, or at least that's what they're teasing, from the rest of what the MCU has released. But it still is the MCU. You know?
right. Well, me, I love all the stuff that isn't the MCU because the MCU has just had the exact same style.
Yeah.
In all its films, and like I love the other ones because they're different.
Yeah.
They're more quote unquote cinematic in nature.
Especially Logan. Lord, that movie is.
Logan, I loved because of the different style, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So yeah, just I'm kind of, unfortunately, but also fortunately for me, spoiled by the MCU.
Right.
I say fortunately for me
You
because
dog.
I'm not a movie fan. I'm not
Right.
crazy about movies. So the fact that a certain style has captured me, I think says volumes.
Sure.
But yeah,
Let's move on to X2.
to the second,
Yeah.
X2, which I thought is the best of the trilogy. Is it the best movie ever? No.
No.
But refresh me on that.
X2?
Yeah.
So it's this war brewing with the government against the X-Men. Nightcrawler, who's been mind-controlled by Stryker.
That was a great opening scene.
It is.
It blows the first movie out of the water.
The first scene alone is great. Some people say that the rest of the movie just pales in comparison to that first season. I don't care. Either way. I just love it all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the first scene, amazing use of the character's powers.
And
stylized
throwing ahead,
music,
I apologize. What X2 did with Nightcrawler? No, I'm phrasing this weird. Whatever Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix did with Nightcrawler pales in comparison to X2.
They don't understand Nightcrawler in those films.
I can't say that now, with the subsequent scenes of Nightcrawler in X2, I can't say they're amazing. But again, still with that first scene, like it sets him up so differently that throws him off in such a weird way in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. And it's rough.
Yes. So in this film, Wolverine has to face his past with Stryker. And everyone else has to survive against capture and trying to free their own people.
Can you expand on that?
With what?
Capture and free their own people? I don't remember this.
Because Stryker went to the school and captured a bunch of students.
Oh, yeah, he did.
And so they have to go and save them.
Right. Now I remember that.
Yeah, like I can never forget that. It was just like a shocking visual as a kid, like to see all those kids be taking like those darts into their necks. It was like, whoa, like what? No, but you know, it was intense.
Why did Stryker do that again?
Stryker just doesn't like mutants. Like he's definitely manipulating the government into eradicating mutants. He steals Charles so that he could kill the mutants with his mind powers.
Was that this movie?
The second one, yes.
Oh, I remember now. I remember that now. Okay. Yeah, that now that part has been unlocked in my brain, I feel like that is kind of what made the movie intense. Is that to a degree they are almost facing their own kind.
Yes.
And not just their own kind, their own leader who was brainwashed. And that makes the movie that more intense. I completely forgot about it. That almost changes everything. That makes me appreciate that movie so much more.
Christopher.
What? I went through these movies in a week and a half, and you had a century and a half to go through these.
Even still, like I would remember a week later plot details more.
I would think I'd be that way too, but also it's been a ride.
Okay. It's been a ride.
So I'm
and then that
readjusting
film
this
ends with Jean and her sacrifice, which could have been filmed better.
Expound.
Like many people when watching that are confused about her sacrifice because they feel like, well, like did she really need to leave the plane to do that? Like the way they filmed it, they like, oh, she could just control the plane. Why couldn't she just do that inside the plane? And it could have been shot differently where it felt more like a sacrifice versus I'm gonna die because the plot needs me to.
Do you have any more thoughts on that?
I mean, no, like
I was kind of able to buy that as it was.
It never bothered me as a kid. I just know other people have that thought process.
I definitely get she probably could and should have been able to control the plane from the inside, but also I would almost think that the dam would be part of the reason why she stayed out, but also she didn't try to stop the dam.
Yeah. Right. Part of it was the plane wasn't taking off. So like she goes outside to buy them time, but then she turns on the plane while she's out there as well, which I don't know. It's one of those things that
battery. Sorry.
Sure, that could be done differently, but yeah, it didn't really bother me as a kid.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me too much.
Like the effect of her dying was like, oh, sacrifice, Jean. Sad.
I think narratively they right in that moment they set up her sacrificing herself that the visual didn't it didn't phase me negatively. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Which leads us to the third one, which is telling the Phoenix saga on top of the Cure.
So my issue kind of with that is that we had, I think it was either you or my friend that explained it, but the director or writers wanted it one way and the studio wanted a different way, so they compromised. So we had two running arcs, and Jean/Phoenix was heavily sidelined. Ironically, for one wanting to be free and independent, she was still heavily controlled. I cannot believe how long she she's played under Magneto. You know what I mean? I was expecting her to rebel at any moment.
Like, she was a weird character, the Phoenix. Because, like, she was just there. Like, oh,
She really was
I'm just
just there.
watching. I don't care either way until something hurts me. I don't know.
It
I guess
wasn't
I'll
terrible.
vaporize them. No, it is actually still a fun movie by the end. But
You know what's funny? I fell asleep right before the final battle. Like, as Magneto was turning the bridge, I fell asleep.
when did you wake up?
When the end credits started.
So you had to rewatch the end?
I was so tired, I just fell asleep and watched the end in the morning. Yeah.
Okay.
That was...
Christopher.
I was tired.
Like, that's why you pause in the middle when you're tired. And, like,
I was
go to
watching with
bed.
a friend. I couldn't pause.
Okay.
I think already at that point, I was waiting for him for like... I forget if it was that movie. It probably was. I was probably waiting for him for like 4 hours. And then we were finally able to do it. And I fell asleep.
Okay. I mean, that movie had a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, almost too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, it made so many choices that were, like, controversial at the time. It's like, so you kill Scott in, like, the first 10 minutes.
Yay!
You kill the professor.
Yes.
You also, like, take away Rogue's powers and Magneto's powers. And we also killed Jean for the second time. We took away Mystique as well.
Yeah.
And her powers. Like, so much was happening. This was definitely meant to be the last stand, like, the ending of this trilogy. And, like, so much happened, if you really think back on it. But still, there was almost too much stuff happening.
Interesting. I knowing that it was a trilogy, I definitely could see it being its end. And also, I think they kind of set up its end well. You know, but also it didn't faze me too much because I feel like it was really just trying to set up to be the end. So we were just killing off characters left and right. I'm like, okay,
right. And then Magneto's moment at the end of the film, just like with the dice, with the checkboard, chess piece.
So Professor X said that Jean is a level 5 mutant.
Levels are just... don't pay attention to levels.
I shall ignore that to ask this question. What levels are Magneto and Charles?
Like,
you know
Charles, like, at least a level 4.
That's what I figured. Because they're apparently Magneto is powerful enough to regain his powers. And
it could also just be like the cure is only temporary, which would explain how Rogue could get her powers back in Days of Futures Past.
In the Rogue cut?
Yes.
Interesting.
It could also just be like the creators just didn't care. They're like, let's just put in this moment. And then they...
I guess that's just such an open-ended thing that could be either way.
See, I like it better that the cure is temporary, because it's just like they completely waste Rogue in this film. Like, I understand her struggle, but it's also like they put it on top of Bobby being silly with Kitty Pryde.
Oh, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out of all these quote controversial things, that just shouldn't have been.
Yeah,
Because he was constantly like, I don't care about your mutation. I still love you. Turns around. Why?
Let's go skating with my girlfriend watching.
Like, I kind of understand a bit to make her happy. Like, I kind of get that. But they obviously played it off so romantically. And I hated that.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say, hey, let me give you a taste of what you miss. But it's another thing to be like, you're cool.
Yeah, they did really well with Beast in this film.
So the interesting thing about that for me is the fact that I kind of have to rewatch that to remember.
Right.
Because going into our prequel movies, they just felt so contrary. And it wasn't until the end of Future Past I'm like, oh, that is the same guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But still, I was never able to think of the two as the same. And then on top of that, because the old Hank is only in one movie, essentially, I don't remember him that well.
Okay. But yeah, Beast in that one, the third one, is more closer to the way he should be than the prequel ones, where he's a bit more edgy. Like, oh, I'm blue. It's a curse. Grr.
Yeah, X3 is just I bet people disagree with me, but just because X1 is just so 2000s and X3 really feels more like its own thing than a product of the 2000s. I like X3 better than X1. Still doesn't mean it's amazing.
Right,
but
yeah.
I
mean, X3 has more to it, but
it does. And I'm not gonna lie, like some of these characters they throw in, for example, honestly, even like Kitty Pryde and her scene with Juggernaut, that was pretty fun.
Juggernaut, man.
But it despite its issues, X3 beats out X1 for me, honestly.
Sure.
X1 just like it really is just like one of those movies that exists. It happened. Okay. But X3 really felt like something.
X3 definitely gets better with time. It was just like at the time people had loved the first two, and the third one was just so different.
Yeah. Did they have they had a different director, right?
Yeah, like Brett Ratner replaced Singer.
Yeah. So
Then we went to Origins.
yay for me.
Which, like, I still liked it, but like as a kid it was just very dull and boring most of the time. It felt very long as well and drawn out.
Really?
Yeah, when I was younger.
It felt so short for me.
Maybe. I couldn't wait for the film to end when I was young. Like, oh, it's kind of long. When is it gonna end? It's kind of boring. Part of it is like the colors of that film is just so muted.
Mm-hmm.
So it just all feels the same. And then we have Wolverine's claws in that film.
Wolverine's what?
Claws.
Okay, so what was the issue?
So it's if you look back at his bathroom scene when he first looks at his claws, those claws look terrible.
Bathroom scene? I don't remember a bathroom scene.
Okay, well, I'll show you later.
Okay.
But yeah, the CGI and the claws was not perfected in that film. And it looked like a cartoon in some moments.
I hate to say it, but I think I was so swept up with the movie I didn't notice.
I mean, you clearly forgot the scene existed, so it's fine. Well, he destroys the bathroom with his claws
I remember
in the
that.
old people's house.
I remember that. But I don't remember his claws looking funky.
Yeah, like you have to pay attention to the claws
Okay.
to actually look at them. You're
Okay.
like, wait, that doesn't look right.
Gotcha.
But like you viewed it great. Just like you accept it as part of it. I don't need to look at the details,
I really did, honestly. Like
which is fine. It's fine.
it makes me sad because I was thinking way too hard during Logan, but my brain completely shut off for Origins. Like I really, really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Like I cannot like I I feel like it's very similar for Winter Soldier for me, where I'm like at the opposite of everybody. I'm not a huge fan of Winter Soldier, but it almost feels like both movies have similar vibes of this chase. But I feel like there was more. I feel like Origins was a little more consistent in the chase than Winter Soldier, and everyone
Yeah.
loves Winter Soldier. I don't. Everyone hates Origins. I don't.
One thing about Origins that I did really like was Victor, who
His brother.
his brother, who is the character Sabretooth.
Mm-hmm.
You know that guy from the first film?
Yeah, which barely
No
existed
connection
in the
at all.
first movie.
It's definitely they're not actually brothers in the comics. They just made that for this movie.
Okay.
But I like the actor that they chose for that character. Did a really good job.
He felt scary.
Yes. I also just really love the opening of that movie. With just the time going by with him in all those wars.
Mm. Oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, like I I I think about like the Raimi and Garfield Spider-Man movies with their opening credits, and I find them long and boring. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, cool effects.
But like for me, it's
Boring.
also like the music helps me through those credits. Like I
Gotcha.
don't watch those credits just to see them. It's like the music. Oh, it's so cool. I love the music. This
Mhm.
one had story going on in it.
Yeah, and they played that well.
One of my favorite.
I will say, regardless, I was sad that Dark Phoenix did not have that. Like it just like jumped in. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean?
Okay, but one of my favorite aspects of Wolverine's character, not presented in any of the films, but just in general, is like he was like good friends with Captain America during the Second World War.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
they don't show that in these films, of course, because copyright reasons. But like in cartoons, you'll see that. Like you'll see that they knew each other, and like I thought that was just a super cool detail about those characters.
Mm. Now, now I wish that was portrayed in live action somehow.
It could one day.
Well, like, wouldn't it have been like so cool if they were able to negotiate a cameo in the first Avenger?
Hmm.
Like, come on!
So, what if they make one of the characters in that film Wolverine? They just choose one of those characters and like, let's make him Wolverine. I don't think they will, but like,
I would hate that, honestly.
I would too, because I'm.
If we could have one flashback scene, at least one flashback scene. I know that means getting Chris Evans back, and I'm not sure how much he'd love that. I don't know much of his status for him wanting to come back or not, but wouldn't that just be so cool? It's one scene, like
I mean, I would love Chris Evans to come back in Doctor Strange
uh-huh,
for a Fantastic Four cameo.
yeah.
I don't know how well they'll even do that, but like,
Mhm.
it'd be so funny.
Here's one thought though. Now, a lot of people are like, obviously they like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and end of story. if Wolverine comes in the MCU, he is obviously going to be played by a different actor. I'm not necessarily one of those people who's like, it has to be Hugh Jackman just yet. I have to see whoever we get to replace him. You know what I mean? To really say that.
Yeah.
But it's still going to be sad that's not going to be Hugh Jackman and Chris Evans in such a scene.
It's because Hugh Jackman was the face of that character. Really, most people only know that character as Hugh Jackman. And like he was in so many films. Of course, like if you knew the character through different mediums, then it's fine. You wouldn't notice. But because Hugh Jackman was the only live action Wolverine, it's gonna be a struggle. It's like when Garfield was selected as Spider-Man.
Really?
People were like so familiar with Tobey because that was their only perception of the character. That when Garfield came in, it was like, who's this poser? Now people have experienced more versions and they're fine with things.
And especially with the ending of No Way Home, people
I just hope that they choose a good Wolverine.
I hope so too.
Like one with a good voice, because you need that Wolverine voice. Like Wolverine is done fantastically in animation because they choose good actors for him.
We'll talk about later, but we have to talk about the X-Men in the MCU at the end of all this.
Okay.
Because obviously now I have thoughts. Before I'm just like, okay, they'll be in one day. And now I'm like, well, now that I've experienced something X-Men, now I have thoughts. You know what I mean?
Okay.
By the way, we didn't talk about the Ultimate Wolverine Origins movie.
What?
The Greatest Showman.
Okay. First class. Let's get on the first class.
What? Am I done with Wolverine Origins?
You can talk about that. I mean, we didn't talk about the Deadpool in that movie, but we don't need to.
Well, yeah, I think it's just obvious. It's so ironic he's more Deadpool before he was Deadpool. You know? Like,
Sure.
Wade was, like, cracking jokes and such, and people are telling him to
shut up. Yeah, like, Ryan Reynolds, good choice for the character, for sure. More Deadpool as him than actual Deadpool. But we'll see.
Yeah, so I want to try to understand why people don't love the movie as much, but the sad part was, his memories being erased.
Part of it was like you've never experienced all the tropes. Some of the writing and characters just seem very odd. Gambit is just in this film. Like,
who is Gambit?
Like the guy who flew.
Oh yeah, now I remember.
Let him. Gambit's just in this film. He's a big character in the X-Men universe. He's like one of the main characters in the X-Men cartoon. That's his first live-action appearance, and he's just in this film.
And like the only live-action appearance, right?
Yeah, he was supposed to get his film. In fact, they keep saying they're going to make it, but they've been saying that for like over 10 years now, so...
Obviously, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Huh. It's even interesting to me that they were considering movies for these other characters. When the face has been so Logan, you know what I mean?
I mean, X-Men Origins was supposed to be like the start of an origin series of movies. So you get Origins movies for like each of our main characters, like one for Storm, one for...
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I don't care if they would have been canon or not. That would have been just cool.
But because like the film didn't do so well, and part of it was because you haven't seen so many movies, like a lot of the tropes just don't... They don't phase you as much.
Yeah. I enjoyed that thing.
And so I guess First Class was like, well, we still want to do some origin, so let's do that with like our main two, Magneto and Xavier. And Magneto is probably my favorite part of the prequel films.
I will have to say, because during the trilogy the dynamic between X and Magneto, you're just like, this is weird, you know. And
there's like an untold history between the two characters.
yes, and the fact that we are finally able to get that with these prequel movies, I love that. And I have to say, I prefer Magneto over Loki.
Over
I know
Loki?
that sounds so
Oh
left
heck
field,
yeah! Like,
but yes,
Magneto's such a cool character.
like there's more to. Yes, I have complained about character building in the X-Men movies,
Right.
but they've built Magneto as a character better than they did in Loki. Now, them being villains, it's hard to connect to them. I know
Yes.
some people do, but I can't. But they've built
I mean, just
Magneto
like
so well.
Magneto's just built so well, even like from the beginning of the first X-Men. Like, you start the film with Magneto in a concentration camp,
Which also starts
which
First
helps
Class.
like build his perspective on people in general. Like, he doesn't trust people because he's experienced like what they can do when they don't trust things, and that's his worry the entire time with mutants.
And I was glad that they started First Class with that.
Yeah.
Because watching X1, I was like, what? So that the fact that they were able to circle around and have that in made me happy.
Yeah, well, bringing in Kevin Bacon, just sitting there watching him.
Who's Kevin Bacon?
Sorry, he's an actor.
Oh,
you don't
okay.
worry about that. Like, you don't know anything.
I don't know anything.
He's just a name that people know.
Gotcha. He sounds like a name that people know.
Yeah.
Don't like First Class. And I think we kind of talked about it a little, but obviously Future Past makes me appreciate First Class more, but the pacing at that movie, First Class, is so... We had an unnecessary party scene. I'm just sitting here like, why? And then also the fact that I'm hearing it Bond inspired. I've never watched Bond, so I have nothing to pull off that.
Right.
Which doesn't help me at all.
For me, it took me multiple viewings of the film for me to appreciate it more. Like, there are aspects of the film that I do like Magneto and such, but like,
I
it
like
was never
Magneto as a result, carrying him forward.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't my thought during the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I appreciate them delving into the history, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, Magneto's a complex character. It didn't hit me till like Apocalypse.
But yeah. I still don't love the film as much as others do, but I can appreciate it more.
I just honestly have to say First Class is my second least favorite X-Men movie.
Okay.
So it's essentially like Dark Phoenix is last, First Class second last, and X1 third last.
I don't feel ever obliged to watch First Class. I never think of the film and be like, oh, I want to watch that film. It's always like, oh, I gotta watch this now because it's part of my viewing. But then I enjoy it when I watch it, but it's just never something I want to watch.
I understand X's and Mystique's history, but it felt too Jennifer Lawrence. Despite, like, I don't think I've seen a Jennifer Lawrence movie, but I love watching her interviews. But she's just too much of a standout of a person that she is just almost outcasted in these movies.
I mean, this was before she was popular.
Interesting.
Yeah, like, no one even knew or even recognized Jennifer Lawrence in the first film.
That's so funny because that
when it
movie
came
just
out.
feels like they were trying to make Jennifer Lawrence.
Because the next year we have, of course, Hunger Games, because that's where people find out
Right.
about Jennifer Lawrence, and then like a couple years later we're getting Days of Future Past, and Jennifer Lawrence is in that movie, and then they realize, oh yeah, she was Mystique, wasn't she? Yeah, so
That's crazy to think about.
mhm.
But because they just made her such like her in that movie without her needing to be popular. That's just crazy to think about, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, did she I feel like there's a bit of Jennifer Lawrence bias in this. Does she act well? Yes. But was she Mystique? I can't say yes.
Not the Mystique that we see years later in the X-Men films, because she
Yeah.
never talks in those films.
Uh-huh. It just I have a very hard time buying the two, you know?
Which is really where the separation begins. One is Mystique being different and hard to connect, and then of course the accident with Charles just doesn't make much sense because we see him walking in Last Stand.
See who walking in the last game?
Charles in the flashback with young Jean, he's walking in that movie.
Did he?
Yes. He's also walking in Origins, but that doesn't matter because it's not canon.
Wait, he did?
Yep.
I mean, I know it's still a small enough continuity error, but still strong enough where I'm just like, what?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that infuriated me when I saw this the first time. It's like, what? He can't lose his legs now. He's still walking when he's bald and later. So.
Oh wait, no, I remember that scene in X3 now.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I was thinking back, like, was I imagining that or not? But also, like, if he was old, like, what in those 12 years in X-Men 3 that didn't show what made him paralyzed? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, in terms of explaining that, First Class makes sense. But it still is.
Not to me, no.
Really?
No, it doesn't make sense because sure that tells you how he got paralyzed, but he's not paralyzed in the other films, so you'd have to undo that.
Well, Origins was meant to be the timeline.
How so?
Not Origins, my bad. First Class. First Class was meant to be the timeline.
What do you mean?
Because they retconned the trilogy with Future Past.
I mean,
And not that it makes what happened.
yeah.
It's not that X3 makes sense as a result. Because here's the thing. Regardless of what happened in Future Past, if First Class truly happened, then he should have been paralyzed in X3.
Correct. Unless they just explain it away with some other thing. But who cares? It's not important.
It really isn't, but still upsetting enough.
It's not important. Like they're clearly trying to do two different things, but with the same aesthetic. And then the next film is The Wolverine, which you watched last night.
Yes. Oh, by the way, that metallic girl in First Class never appeared again.
She wasn't metallic. She was diamond.
Was it diamond? Okay.
Yes.
The only reason why I find that weird is because Magneto beckons her at the end of First Class.
I think you read something about her being dead in Days of Futures Past.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's another blink and you'll miss it moment.
Okay. What was the blink and you miss it moment in Logan as it relates to Wolverine?
Uh,
I might have caught it, but I can't remember. What I
there's
caught.
two things. One, there's a quick shot where you see who's Wolverine's friend in the Wolverine with the sword.
Redheaded girl?
Sure. You see the sword that's gifted to him on a wall
Oh, really?
in Logan. Like
Okay.
they show it very quickly, but it's very quickly.
Uh-huh.
And then the villains are explaining this land belongs to this company, which is the company that his love interest
really?
in the Wolverine owns.
Okay. You know what's the sad thing about the Wolverine movies is that like each of the movies are almost like their own different universe.
They really are.
Like because they almost set up the end of Wolverine to. I mean, I skimmed through the deleted scene of the comic accurate costume. Regardless of that scene or not, the fact that redhead girl, aka bodyguard, was like, let's go on adventures now, was almost like, okay, we're gonna have more Wolverine movies, essentially.
Yeah, but then we didn't because I'm sure the actor was like wanting to slow down,
Uh-huh.
and then they made Logan. But we'll get to Logan.
Yeah. And then I feel like there's another. I I'm just thinking about the end credits scene. I like how they did that to tie into Future Past,
I mean,
and
it helps tease you for the movie, but then what happens in the movie has nothing to do with the Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
It's like because the future, you take place years in the future in that film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sorry for hitting to Future Past, and I get it, but it's also interesting that those robots that was killing everybody was never mentioned in the other movies, which makes sense, but not. Wait, did they?
They were visually referenced
Really? Okay.
in Last Stand.
Gotcha. Okay.
In those robots are like big in the comics and the animated show. Like they're constant bad guys that show up.
Okay.
And so in Last Stand, there's a scene where they're in a training session in holographic.
Oh yes.
And so the giant robot's head come out. It's a different design, but it's meant to be the exact same thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think we can accept the fact that the design of the robots have evolved.
Honestly, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like none of it makes sense. Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Wolverine.
The Wolverine. It's not bad.
No.
But it's not amazing.
No.
This is one of my off the top of the head initial big gripes. The Viper.
Yes. The Viper.
The fact that we have this whole movie set in Japan with Japanese characters and the Viper, the one of the ultimate big bads of the movie, is Caucasian.
Oh, that's not a gripe for me.
Really? Well,
the gripe is just like she has so little in that movie. She does one thing to Logan, and then the rest she's just not important, really.
I mean, they didn't do her well, but I feel like she still had more in the movie than.
I don't see an issue with her being Caucasian.
My thing is that it just feels random. Like, where did Mr. Japanese, I have big tech company, I'm working with all these awesome people, pulls a Caucasian lady from the middle of nowhere to help him.
Is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, it's just weird.
I don't think so.
Why?
Because, like, who says that he can't find someone with her type of abilities outside of Japan? Like, it makes sense to just find someone with those abilities. It doesn't matter if they're in Japan or not. Just see where you can find them.
I mean, like, in retrospect, it kind of eases it a little bit because Grandpa was alive all this time, which I'm going to be very honest, despite that being, quote, cliche, I did not see that coming one bit. No. You know what I mean? Like, that just, what? Okay. So when you think about that, it wasn't necessarily her running this operation the whole time. But in the moment, I was just really like, why is she Caucasian?
It's very interesting how you're so befuddled about this one girl being Caucasian.
Yeah, because this is honestly kind of unusual for me. It just feels random, but so like they had to do it.
Or I don't think it's random. It's more. It really helps stand her out.
It does, but that was. But her clothing also made her stand out.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, initially, her being the Caucasian doctor in the office obviously made her stand out. And then she went to the funeral. And then from then on, it was her clothes. In the funeral, she was dressed in diamonds. In the final scene, she was in her shiny green suit. My friend mentioned that Viper in the comics, her hair is green. I don't think she would have done well with green hair in the movie.
No,
but that would be interesting if we
and
had
so they
an Asian
so they
lady
did it.
with
They
some
did
green
the next best thing and gave her like something closer to green, which is like yellow, blonde.
Interesting.
Than just going dark hair.
Some scenes she looked like a redhead. Or shots, dare I say. Some shots she almost looked like a redhead.
Which is it's fine.
I don't know why I'm hung up on this, but it stands out too much.
I don't know.
In a weird way.
See, I would care very less about her character if she blended in with everyone else.
What they don't do enough with her character for her to stand out so much. I don't know. It was just weird. And then another kind of weird thing for me was how many Japanese cultural traditions they mentioned. Which, yeah, they exist. But it also just felt like let's stereotype them a bit thing. But
it's also like a learning tool for Logan to learn more about that culture while he's there, because he's out of his element. He doesn't know anything, and so they're just helping him along, essentially.
It's kind of true.
I take no issue with that.
It was just weird how many they threw in to me. I don't know. Like I am a believer in trying to understand people's cultures, because if you go to a different culture and you do stuff wrong, then obviously you are just not going to be on their good side. So it's important to, dare I say, appease to a culture. But it just almost seemed like, oh, because it's Japan, obviously they have cultural traditions, so let's throw in as many as we can, kind of. That was just a little, I don't know. It was interesting.
See it like that, but sure.
I don't know. I just feel like Japan is distinct enough. Whatever. Also, another note. For those watching, I also essentially watched the extended cut of Wolverine. Unintentionally, I'm not going to get into that full story, but that is what happened. So I got an additional 12 minutes of content watching that.
You know,
Mhm.
I don't know a lot about that stuff, so.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional, John. It wasn't intentional.
See, like I didn't even know that movie had an extended cut, even though I should. Like I looked it up after you told me, and like I saw the cover, and it's like, oh, I've seen that cover before. I just didn't consider it extended. Also, like at the time it came out, I didn't really understand what it meant. Because like to me, it's like I would assume that if I bought the film, I would get everything about the film. I didn't understand that there was a difference. It wasn't really until Lord of the Rings and Batman vs Superman that I really got into more extended stuff.
Gotcha. So with the X-Men movies, besides the Wolverine and Future Past, are you aware of any other extended cuts?
No.
Okay.
I've never looked into it, so I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Wolverine, yeah. Again, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't amazing.
I vaguely read that like Wolverine in the extended cut is much more violent.
I believe it. Do I know that? No, because I can't compare.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because I was saying like, oh, this is a great precursor for Logan. They're like, oh, hold your hats, Christopher. Yeah, I don't really know much else to say about Wolverine. Like, it kind of just sits there and like it was a
It does its job,
movie.
you know.
Yeah.
It's a film that helps Logan get past his guilt with Jean.
Yeah. That actually, here's one thing I really liked about it. Wolverine finally met his match. Throughout this whole time, he can't die. He can't lose, essentially. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And now the fact that he had that freaking bug on his heart, he essentially met his match. You know what I mean? And then the freaking poisoned arrows. Like that, I appreciate it because if we had Wolverine in his own movie and he and nothing could stop him, then it can't always be done well, you know? Because you kind of have to have some conflict. You have to have him have some sense of losing. For it to feel like a good conflict. So the fact that they were able to do that, how comic book accurate is it? I don't know. I don't care. What the movie was, it worked, I thought.
Right. So then we move on to Days of Future Past.
I'm gonna say I have to do this for a hot second.
Mm-hmm.
Is Logan the better, more artful movie? Yes, but I enjoyed Future Past more.
I mean, we're not Logan yet, so.
I know, but I just had to throw that out there.
Okay.
I
get that. Like, Days of Future Past has a lot more. It's closer to an MCU film than Logan is.
Yeah, actually,
it's much more action packed. There's much more character.
That's true.
Characters in them, and like the stakes are much different.
But also,
and it looks cooler. It's like colorful. And
was
fun.
Future Past better than most MCU movies? Arguably, yes. You know,
I mean,
like
Days of Future Past is like the Infinity War, and Endgame of the X-Men films,
Mhm.
where you combine the two universes and bring back the old people who haven't been on screen for almost 10 years by that point.
Wow. Wow. Future Past, I will say I like it better than Endgame. Endgame works for what it is, but number one, it doesn't stand alone.
No,
Future Past can stand alone
because it tells you everything you need.
in the one movie. Yes.
Mhm.
Now, same with No Way Home. Is it nice to watch the older stuff first? Yes. But both No Way Home and Future Past stand alone as their own movies.
Um,
Better than Endgame.
Better than Endgame, yes. I'd still say that No Way Home works better with watching the other two
100%.
to build excitement for that big moment that comes in,
Mm-hmm. Also, I forgot. They'll probably
Yeah,
hate me.
Days of Future Past. I love the ending of the film where Logan is back in his own time,
Oh yeah,
and we see all those old characters come back for the quick cameos.
that was awesome.
It was like so awesome. It's like for me, especially watching those films growing up, see those characters again. Like I saw this in theaters with my friends, and it was great. It really was.
Was there cheering like there was for like Endgame or not?
Uh, I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think there was cheering. It was more like some gasp and laughs.
Mm,
Like I remember that character.
yeah. I feel like Infinity War and Endgame are like, and No Way Home are like those movies that everyone cheers for, and no one else cheers for anything else, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The MCU is really on its own level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
And
I don't know if
so
that's a compliment or not, but
without the
it's fine.
Rogue cut, the only time we see Rogue is at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and she's wearing gloves in that film,
Hmm.
which was like, oh, she has her power in this one, yay! So that was great when watching it.
So, also, you have not seen the Road Cut yet, correct?
I have not.
You have not.
Like I told you last night, but I did buy the Blu-ray. It's
Yay.
here. I'll watch it eventually, but
I definitely want to watch the Road Cut when I go through these things the second time.
I mean, I could probably buy a digital version later as well, for your sake, but that's down the line.
We can get there or talk about that later.
We will get there when we get there.
Because also, I really want to see the old cuts of Spider-Man 2 and 3, and I was thinking that we could talk about this later. Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Those other versions,
So,
Days of Future Past had a lot in it. You have the Sentinels, which were neat villains in the future. Like the
Sentinels,
stakes were high.
the Sentinels were the robots?
Yeah, the
Okay.
robots.
Sorry,
The stakes were like so high.
they were
The
so
characters
high.
were dying. It's like you see Bobby get killed in the beginning of the film, which is like, what? They killed Bobby? But then of course time travel shenanigans and all that. But it was also just like, whoa, they're not kidding around this time. Like stakes are high.
And the fact that they were racing against time,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously Logan couldn't really know that.
Right. They never explain why Kitty has that power, but that doesn't matter. It serves the plot.
Yeah. I kind of don't know what to say, except that it was just so enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. And then it brings in Logan without his metal claw, his bones, which is a neat callback to Origins, even though it's not really canon. And then this is also the very first appearance of Quicksilver
Yeah.
in
The X-Men movies.
in general.
Oh, did it beat Ultron?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Actually, no. Origins had Quicksilver in it very quickly.
Did it?
It did. It's another blink and you miss it. It's like they don't call him Quicksilver, but you do have a guy with a similar hair who's like running fast, but he's being pulled back by a rubber band.
Huh. Like in
Like,
the cages?
Yes. So you really, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this is like the first on-screen understanding of Quicksilver. This is the one that people gravitated towards because of his funny nature and how they showed his speed with the slow motion and music and playful.
So cool.
It's so fun. That was one of the best moments ever when it came out.
I know I'm hopping ahead, but the fact that they used a Sweet Dreams song in Apocalypse just made that scene like so
And of
fun.
course they had to do another one for Apocalypse because
but like you can't not, you know what I mean?
I know. It's like people loved it, so you have to make it bigger.
Yeah. I'm so glad they did. It's like so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like it made it fun. I'm not like I enjoy seeing a different side of Quicksilver, and I'm glad I saw the MCU version first. Because going from Fox to MCU would have been like, what?
It's better to see a character bland and then go to better than seeing better and then just seeing a blander version.
Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily straight up saying like one is better than the other. Because both characters were kind of there.
Right.
And if they serve their own purpose, but again, it's the humor that makes the Fox one more enjoyable. It's the fact they show the slow motion.
It's the humor and style of the character.
Yeah.
Versus
that definitely
the
is
other one.
more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, that's the thing, what I was talking about, like, what's better and what do I actually enjoy more? Kind of comparison. So,
yes.
I can't, it's been too long since I've seen the MCU Quicksilver for me to compare better. But in terms of enjoyable, it definitely, just because of those scenes, the Fox one is more enjoyable.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, Days of Future Past. I really enjoy that movie.
Like, I don't know what
I
to
can
say.
watch
it's
that movie
amazing.
without watching any of the others
by
itself. And I feel the need to sometimes.
Yeah. That's just so cool.
And then the next movie, I believe, is Apocalypse, which they teased at the end.
Yeah.
Apocalypse, I don't hate, but I didn't love when it came out. I thought it was passable.
Mm-hmm. This feels like a product of the MCU. If you know what I mean. We have to compete, and they throw in cliches. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, also keeping some integrity when they have Magneto.
Yes.
Because Magneto in that film is really,
I think that's. No, I'm the fact that he started a family is what won me over to the character.
Even though he does have another family out there.
Yeah.
Which they never.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool that Dark Phoenix, they're like, this is our last one, let's pull all stops like what we did with The Last Stand. The Last Stand was ending material. Dark Phoenix was not.
Yeah.
Dark Phoenix just felt like another chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they did, what my friend told me, they did as many reshoots as they did, they should have done more to really end it.
Uh-huh.
And also the more I think about the villain of Dark Phoenix, it really shows how similar it was to Captain Marvel. That's crazy.
Do you know that in Apocalypse, the X-Men don't ever fight him until the last battle?
The villain?
Yes. They never face him until the very end.
Uh-huh. They had the one prison scene with the Logan cameo.
That one is just... that I think of all the Logan cameos, that one is just out of place.
It kind of is.
It's just like we have to meet our Logan criteria for this film.
It's also like we have to really emphasize that origins didn't happen.
Not that, but also just, oh, we're here. Oh, I guess who else could also be here? It also doesn't really make sense from the original trilogy perspective, but it's fine.
I mean, if the original trilogy didn't happen anymore, then
yeah, Angel is full grown in this version. The X-Men know of Nightcrawler in this version.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, was it cool seeing Logan in Apocalypse? I have to say yes. It was cool just kind of seeing him being a beast. But it was weird.
It was just like, we have to meet this cameo.
Speaking of forced characters, that's essentially all our rehashed characters in Apocalypse. Nightcrawler, like I said earlier, just after seeing X2, just was like, what? In this movie? Angel was like, there. Storm kind of made the most sense, but also she was sidelined again.
Yeah, it is cool to see her younger side.
It's not a bad movie compared to Dark Phoenix, but it just feels like a product of its time. Again.
Yeah.
It's not going to age well.
It's not a movie that I don't ever feel like rewatching, except for maybe the mansion scene, maybe the Magneto family section, but I don't ever feel like watching that film. Another blue guy is a villain, Only a couple years after Guardians of the Galaxy with Ronan, who they look very similar.
Yep.
But it exists. That was a movie.
It exists. Again, I can forgive it more after Dark Phoenix, Like, here's the thing. With the end of Future Past, was it a good ending of itself? Yes. But also, it kind of makes you want to know what then happened with our years that didn't happen anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Despite it still happening in the 80s, essentially, not the 2000s. Still, it was kind of nice to see what did happen.
Magneto aged poorly in 20 years.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I also, here's another thing. I liked X's love interest in First Class, despite her barely existing in that movie.
Moira?
Yeah. Why was she in Apocalypse? Why was Charles such a perv, almost, in that movie as it related to her? Does your son have a husband?
Well, part of it has to do with, of course, the comics and the cartoon, where he and Moira, that was always a struggle with him. And also, you had to connect, if that's what their intention was, to Last Stand, the end credits scene with Charles coming back. Moira was the woman in that scene.
Really?
Yes. And they need to find a way to have her recognize who Charles was, of course. If they were even still trying to do that, but
Well, but again, Last Stand didn't happen now, so it doesn't matter.
Yes and no. But it's also like they wanted just to use the character because.
Mm-hmm. Here's one thing. As much as I'm kind of glad we didn't have a convoluted side plot in Dark Phoenix with Mora and X.
Well, you don't need it.
I wanted it, honestly, because I wanted to see where the relationship went after that movie. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm glad it wasn't in there because it would have made the movie more of a disaster.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. Apocalypse, I feel like after watching it, I gave it too much credit. And looking back, I don't think it's aged well in the past 2 days. But again, in comparison to Dark Phoenix, I guess let's just transition there. What is that movie? I don't know what that movie is.
Me neither.
I sat there confused. Like it feels like it was trying 10 different things.
It's like it wanted to be an X-Men movie to get people to come in. They wanted to like try and do a better version of the Phoenix character. And then they just gave up because guess what? I guess we're being sold to Disney. Oh, okay. Well, let's just release what we have now and give up.
For being such a simple movie, it was so confusing.
Yeah.
And
of course they killed Mystique and showed it in the trailer.
So stupid.
Yes.
What I'm trying to form words.
I have no words to give Dark Phoenix. I don't even know what to think about it. I don't remember half of it because I don't know why. I don't know anymore.
Such a rough movie.
Yeah.
Again, in retrospect, The Last Stand was like the end. It felt like the end. Dark Phoenix felt like another chapter, and it felt like, despite like the end of Hank taking over the school, which retcons future past. Obviously, stuff could have happened in the 20 years in between, but obviously we don't have that. So essentially, like, made the ending of Future Past not happen. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I was just like, that movie didn't accomplish anything except destroy its legacy. Almost ironically, I was mad disappointed that there was no end credit scene where they could have patched something up, you know?
Sure. But even still, it just means that they were done with these films.
It's such a sad way to say goodbye.
Yeah. I mean, Logan does the X-Men dirty as well, but...
So I guess let's kind of jump to that one interesting thing about Logan is that watching it, it almost seemed like a continuation after X3 than Future Past. Because Future Past ended so hopeful. However,
yeah,
reading the plot synopsis on IMDb, they mentioned two things, which one thing they had in the film, it was just hard to accept, and then the other thing was kind of hinted at in the movie.
Yes.
But the fact that Charles was having those brain seizures essentially,
Mm-hmm.
which, according to IMDb, killed the school.
Yes.
So then that makes sense. Like, again, not knowing that, it feels more like a continuation of X3. But knowing that, it makes sense that Charles was getting old and dying.
They do, like, there's another, like, blink and you miss a moment in Logan for an explanation about the X-Men. Like, there's the radio thing that's just casually going on. It's like, oh, it's been like 10 years since we had mutants. Ever since, like, the X-Men died, and then Logan turns off the radio. Before the audience finds out. But originally, Logan was supposed to open with the X-Men dying. But they cut that. And I
Is it
think
a deleted scene?
no.
Okay.
They were going to do it, but then they didn't feel that it worked well with the rest of the film.
I would agree. The other thing, so near the end, the Dr. Rice guy says he poisoned the food. Is that what he said? To kill off the mutants? Because that's what I remember from the IMDb.
Poison the food to kill off the mutants.
Let me just pull that up. Let me just read what it says.
I don't think that was the case.
Okay, let me just read what I read. Because I don't remember. Sounds up late last night.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rice reveals that he is actually the son of the man killed by Wolverine when he escaped the Weapon X project, which
let's just not think about that.
Rice admits responsibility for the extinction of mutants thanks to a virus developed by the Transgen. Sorry, there was no the. Developed by Transgen that was seeped into food supplies before you can continue Logan shoots him dead.
Okay, I vaguely remember something like that.
So with these two plot points in mind, I can better connect it to the ending of Future Past. You know what I mean? Because Future Past, yay, and then
yeah, even though Logan, like, I think Logan just stands by itself as a film.
It stands better on its own than Future Past. You don't have to watch the other movies to watch Logan.
Mm-hmm. But Logan is a better experience if you have watched the entire journey and then you see the end.
I don't know how I really feel about the movie.
It takes time, for sure.
Again, it's because here's the thing. I am really afraid people, despite the fact we have no audience, I'm really afraid people are going to hate me for saying what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I've read, now, it's not necessarily I have directly controversial views.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I barely have specific things to say.
Yes.
But the thing is, Logan is like everyone's favorite X-Men movie. That I'm afraid to say something. You know what I mean? I have seen, I will say, I have seen enough reviews that there are enough people who don't claim Logan as their favorite. So, which gives me some comfort. But it's still very scary because that movie is like the movie for so many people. I cannot deny it is a piece of art. The shots are insane.
Mm-hmm.
And also, clarify, I watched the noir version
The noir, yes.
the noir version to help with the gore, which wasn't. This might surprise you. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting, but also I watched the noir version.
Yes, which noir helped a lot.
Yeah,
because there's much more color in the non-noir version, which you know.
I will say I really enjoyed watching it in black and white. It did not detract from the viewing at all. Anyways, it's a piece of art. Like it is. Again, like I think you can honestly really say that when a movie stands on its own.
Mm-hmm.
If it feels so interconnected, sometimes it loses its feeling of it being an art piece. You know, like I could pull a song from an album and say, well, guess what? It's part of like this underlying story from an album, and you won't really get it on its own.
Yeah.
You could still maybe appreciate, but not really. Or I can pull out a song from an album, and maybe it does fit with the story of the album, but it still stands out on its own in an amazing way because it is a pure piece of art that can't stand on its own. But obviously, it's better with context, and that obviously is just re-overstating what Logan is.
Yeah, Logan will take place 7 years from now.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah, it takes place 7 years from now, and actually, when I watched the movie, I caught something.
Oh.
So X-23 or X-23, the girl, is born this year.
Wait, isn't Logan X-23?
No.
Okay, so I got that confused. Okay. That makes sense. No. A little more. Anyways. Okay, so she was born this year?
Yeah, because like there's a brief shot where they show like dates of birth of the characters, and I quickly saw that she was born in 2022. And was like, oh, what? Man, this year, it's this year. Wow, I'm getting old.
Didn't they refer to her as being 11 years old? Charles had a passing reference of I'm 90 and she's 11.
I don't think that's the correct age.
Okay, because if anyone knows
I
something,
think he was like
Charles.
throwing out years. It's not her specific age because she never confirms or denies the age.
Then you would kind of still think Charles would say 10 and 11, but okay.
It's fine.
She did seem older than 7, though.
I guess you can call that a little bit of an issue.
But 11 seems to fit her more than 7.
Yes, so I get So that is a little mark.
But unless what they did aged her so much. Which I doubt. Guide me, John. I don't know. I didn't know what to say after watching it. I still don't know what to say. But I don't love it. Like, I appreciate it. But I need to watch it a second time.
Part of it is, like, the main story of Logan is telling the part of history of Old Man Logan, which is a comic book series. Where Logan's an older man. He's much more brutal, which is why they decided to do that for his last film instead of like continuing on with the younger film. But this film actually is very similar to The Last of Us, the video game.
Is that a zombie movie?
It's
Sorry, zombie video game?
It's a zombie video game where you have this old man who looks exactly like Logan, years older, and like he is sent on a mission to take this younger girl across the land to their destination. And on their journey, they form a bond and essentially adopt each other by the end. And it's very similar to this film, except this film, my biggest critique of this film is that I felt like there was not enough time for their relationship to get to where it is by the end of the film. And that's my only big gripe with the film.
I think this movie kind of personified how much I struggle with Logan's character.
Okay.
Because it kind of, despite how strong-headed Logan is, it kind of shows how much he can be pushed over. You know what I mean?
Meaning what?
He did this mission for the money. So if it wasn't for the money, he wouldn't have done it. It was the girl being annoying that made him go to Eden. Charles is manipulative as always. You know what I mean?
Right. But then it's also the struggle with this takes place years in the future. Logan has lost everyone in his life. All he has left is Charles, who is dying with whatever mental disorder he has. And so it's just... And he's also being poisoned by the inside by his adamantium, which is causing him to just slowly die. And so he just wants to find a way to die. Like he's done with everything. Like mutants, that cause he fought for so many years, is just gone. It's pointless. He's at the end of his rope. He doesn't care anymore.
That brings some context.
Which brings him to X-23, and it scares him that now there's a responsibility that he doesn't want. Like this girl, who's essentially his daughter. And like he doesn't want to go through all that again. Like he's lived hundreds of years old. So many people he's known has died. And now he's the father. And like she has to experience that, and he doesn't want to do it with her. So with that, after multiple viewings, you get more understanding of Logan's mindset by the end, but it's also just you needed to find a way to get the character to go on an emotional journey that by the end he's like, thank you, I've been redeemed in myself. I believe in this again, and now I'm dead.
With Origins, I was really swept up with the thrill ride.
Mm-hmm.
Logan, I wasn't. I was... The friend I watched it with was familiar with the overall storyline of him getting old, him being poisoned, not being able to heal. I wasn't.
Right.
This was new. He's been able to heal himself for 200 years. This metal in him has been in him for, I don't know, 50, and he's been fine. You know what I mean? Like, this felt like such a new concept. That was
true. Yeah.
Except for Wolverine, but that was literally something he could get over. Essentially, he took out the bug out of his body. That the poison wore off. You know, he was fine. Unless you could argue those had lasting effects on him, but I'm not going to argue that far. I understand age occurs, but also Charles was still able to operate the way he normally could.
Mm-hmm.
With the asterisks of age, but he was still able to operate. Wolverine couldn't heal anymore. I kind of thought like, oh, he's a mutant. this is something he literally can't get over because he is built this way, period. The metal I can understand initially, but also didn't really digest soon enough. Probably digested after the movie ended. The metal in him I could understand more because that's a foreign substance in his body.
And like sometimes it takes a while for the body to find out a way to reject it.
Yeah. So it was
it's definitely like the timeline doesn't match as much. His aging, the metal poisoning, I'd give it probably another 20 more years, but I understand that they needed to have it where it was in order to have all these characters together. Which, for that, I accepted it because I really wanted to see this story.
And then they introduced the serum at the end when they got to eat it, and that lost me. That's when my brain went into overdrive, cognitively trying to figure things out.
Okay. What do you need?
Well, for one thing, the don't take it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, of course, the kids know the serum. They've been injected with it all their lives. It's from that facility that they're from, and it's always short form. The serum, think of it as an overdose. You saw, like, after Logan took the serum, when it wore out, he was in really bad shape. Like, really slow down. He took it all at once. It gave him his berserker mode, which is what is known in the comics. But the effect is he's worn out now. Like, it will kill him. I understood that. So it's like an overdose of anything. You give someone too much of anything, it will harm them.
It's just, I guess I just kind of saw Logan as essentially a healing god, and so he just could get over it. You know what I mean?
Except, like, I understood from the context of the film, we've already seen that his healing isn't working properly. Like, it takes a big struggle for him to push out bullets, and then later at that point in the film, it's just like not healing, essentially.
Which, if this movie happened in the span of a week, that was just such a quick turnaround of him. Even though it was a struggle for him to heal right at the beginning, he was still able to heal.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably maybe up to 95%, but still 95%.
But it's also like, it's probably been a really long time where he's had a really intense battle to really heal from. Because earlier he's just had a few gunshots and he could struggle with that. Then he meets his biggest opponent yet, which is himself, really tears into him. And he's also just dealing with the emotional strain of losing Charles. And it's just, he's out for days.
That, I will say, really hit hard in the moment, losing Charles, because I did not see that coming. I don't know if I had a feeling if he would die or not in the movie, but probably I didn't. So that was just a shock, because obviously at first you thought it was Logan, and then regardless, he still was killed.
It's also one of the things where people assume that Charles was likely going to die based upon the trailer. Where, like, Dark Phoenix was explicitly, clearly she's dead. Yeah. In Logan's trailer, it wasn't clearly, but, like, you could assume something.
But obviously Logan's death hits harder in retrospect.
Yes, his Logan's death works so well because one, it's the death of the character, but two, it's also the actor's last performance as Logan.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into the film, we all knew this, and so like
Mhm.
this was the harder feeling for it.
I hate to play the comparison game, but
Yes, go ahead.
I did not cry.
Which one?
Actually, the scene I came closest to crying was when he was talking about the bullet that he was carrying around to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
That was the closest I came to crying. Now, at the end, they built it up well with him being pierced, the girl saying daddy, him saying this is what it feels like, the poem, the turning the cross, goes to Black Logan. Lord, like,
Yeah.
I actually already knew about the cross turning to the X, but boom, Logan. Like, oh my god. But I didn't cry.
For me, I get more emotional after repeated viewings of the movie.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Again,
but also there is like a connection to be made with this movie and the Wolverine. With what was his French name? Yuriko, I don't know. The one that can see the future and how people die. She describes that Logan will die with his hand in his heart. When he dies, the girl is holding his hand.
Wow. Dang, that just made me tear up right there.
I know. That extra layer of context just makes it punch so much more.
Wow.
I don't rewatch the movie a lot.
Yeah.
I made this a point. Like after I watched the movie the first time, like I could recognize that this was well made, and I could recognize that if I were to watch this a lot, like over and over, then my emotional connection to it would be dulled. And so I made a decision to not watch this movie a lot and take time in between each viewing of it. So it was like a year and a half until I watched it again when I bought it on DVD.
Again, to kind of go back to my earlier point, I don't have a personal connection with the character of Logan.
Of course.
I think that's another thing. You had to be connected with his struggle, whether it was the struggle of the collective X-Men or Logan himself. And the closest I came to that was either Origins or Future Past. Now, again, I'll say Logan would be probably ranked at number 3 of emotional experiences of these X-Men movies.
Okay.
But, like, I think here's the thing. I had known how much people had loved this movie. So the bar was set real high. I think, in retrospect, that was the issue. The bar was set way too high for me.
Yeah. But part of it is this film is so different from all the others. Like stylized, feels more like it feels more like a Western. Like
Especially in Black and White.
by that point, they were all like similar in action style. In fact, like before the movie came out, I was I was talking with like one of my professors in high school, and like I was saying, I'm excited for the new Logan movie, and he's like, yeah, like I'm kind of tired of this whole like superhero genre, and I told him, oh no, like this film's gonna be completely different, and then I showed him the trailer, and he's like, huh, that looks so different. I'm actually excited to see this. Which the Logan trailer is probably one of the best trailers out there.
Send me that trailer.
I will.
Because there are multiple trailers.
Yeah, like the first trailer is just so. It sets up the mood of the film perfectly. It lets you know that this is not going to be your typical superhero movie. It's going to be a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the X-Men franchise for you. Like there's still the New Mutants, but I haven't seen it yet. So
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen Deadpool movies yet.
oh yeah,
I'm probably gonna tackle New Mutants sometime this week. I just want to finish what I started.
yeah.
That's all. I, I'm at least hoping it's better than Dark Phoenix. That's the least I'm hoping.
We'll see.
Isn't it crazy that they actually made that New Mutants movie in retrospect? You know what I mean?
It's
like, I haven't seen it, but like, oh yeah, we're being bought out. Let's finish this.
Yeah.
I guess you have to finish what you start, but still.
Yeah. I believe like they were wanting to do a New Mutants movie with Laura to be like the central character, and it'll be following their group, which I would really love because that actress did amazing in this film.
So honestly, here's the thing. If it wasn't her, I would be dogging on this movie even more. That actress was phenomenal.
And like that's her first movie role, which is
insane.
I don't know if I've seen her in anything else.
But yeah, I would have thought that New Mutants would have been like the Logan sequel, essentially.
Yeah, I guess like conceptually it is, but it's not at all connected to the characters we saw.
I kind of hate that.
Because the description is like, oh, they're all born in a facility, just like the others. Actually, the girl, isn't she in an HBO series? Yeah, Daphne Keane. Any other thoughts that you have here?
Now I want to think about the X-Men and the MCU.
Okay.
Before watching the X-Men movies, I'm like, okay, I know the X-Men exist. Whatever. I don't care. The MCU can do what they want. I didn't care. Now I do. Now I've seen essentially all the X-Men movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Now, like the origin of the mutants, I don't think was clearly defined in at least the first X-Men movie.
I don't really think it really needed an origin. They just said genetic mutation. This is like the next step in our evolution, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. So, how are they going to approach this in the MCU? They could all of a sudden these genetic mutations are happening now, or they could eternal them that they. Now, if they can do a good "we've been hiding all this time" story, if it works, it works. But I am wondering.
There was a theory that the snap and then coming back could have created mutations.
That will be fun. I'm down for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down for that. I like that, actually. But I'm really afraid what they're going to do is mutants are going to come in through Multiverse of Madness, and then they stay in the MCU world, which can be pulled off well, but also I'm worried it won't be. I wonder if
Sure.
it's going to be too much of a shoe-in, because what you just said, I never thought about that, and I actually love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
They should do it.
They should. Bro. Man,
You know?
I love that, but I kind of hate you for bringing that up, because now if they don't do it, I'm going to be pissed.
Right. Yeah. But no, mutants in the comics. I think this was like a story that I heard that like Stan Lee and Kirby, they both created the concept of mutants just because they were tired of trying to give origin stories to all their new superheroes. So like, just make them mutants. This new thing, there's your superpower. They're mutants.
I'd love that.
Which works well,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also very confusing because mutants is always about their civil rights, while everyone else doesn't have that kind of struggle.
I am really curious how they're going to approach it.
Yeah, because
with our current context, because it's, if anything, our current civil rights movement is the LGBT.
Yes, because like when it came out, X-Men has always been about our minorities.
Mm-hmm.
It came out, it was a big conversation about black and white, male and female, that thing. And it's slowly been like changing and evolving to like what we have now, essentially. So I am curious to see them and how they're gonna fit, but I'm also worried that they're gonna make it too complicated. Because it's simpler when you just make it simple.
Mm-hmm. I will be intrigued if they include a little bit of modern commentary.
Sure.
I just don't.
And the thing is, we know that they're going to do that.
But
if Eternals is a sign that they can do that, they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
At the end of the day, I really hope it will be done well. But my worry is the fact that this is the MCU we're talking about.
Yes.
And while the MCU has done many things right, they have done a good number of things wrong.
Yes.
Or sideways, more or less.
Yeah.
Not necessarily directly wrong, but just sideways. Yeah. I want to be optimistic for mutants in the MCU.
Yeah.
But I'm not optimistic about the origin.
We'll see. They'll think of something.
They will.
I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has Inhumans in that series, which is pretty much mutants.
From what I'm hearing, Miss Marvel in the comic books, she's an Inhuman, but she's not in the upcoming series.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
I'll see.
We'll see. We'll see what they're doing. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's not canon.
That's not canon.
Honestly, it wouldn't make sense.
It's. No, I haven't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in full. I've only seen the pilot episode, but
yeah,
it's a fun supplement. I don't want to knock anybody for enjoying it at all. But I am a little upset about how many people are dying for it to be canon. You know what I mean?
I mean, it would be nice if it was canon, but
It would be nice.
It's also just I've accepted that there is a difference in studios. And like I can understand the difference. Like I've lived with this difference so many times with two different properties that are similar, but technically they're not together.
Now I got a project for you.
Okay.
Interlacing. Now I bet it's somewhere online, and maybe I'll compare what you got with what I can find online. But interlacing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., at least the first few seasons, with the movies. Now, I only want the first few seasons, because as soon as we get to the later seasons, it gets to its own universe that I don't think we should think about interlacing them.
See, in order for me to do that, I have to rewatch the show.
Okay. I don't have to make you do that.
I can tell you on the top of my head moments that connect.
The first season is interlaced with Winter Soldier, that much I know, right?
It's interlaced with Winter Soldier, Thor: The Dark World.
Really?
Yes, that's one of the earlier episodes where they clean up the aftermath of the Dark World.
Really?
Yes.
Fun.
There's some interlacing with the first Avengers, but that's like an aftermath thing.
Yeah.
Very, very briefly with Ultron, which is a mention. Two things with Ultron, actually.
Well, didn't they even mention Thanos at one point? There's a clip on YouTube I saw, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Thanos or something. That's a minute long.
Not until later seasons, but they mention Ultron.
Okay.
They are technically the cause of why there's an aircraft carrier in Ultron.
In Ultron, yes.
Which,
I've heard that.
That's the closest connection you could possibly make, but it's still not a great connection. After that, it's just like
it becomes its own thing.
When it comes to Infinity War.
Oh, they tried.
The show ends with, hey, there's a battle going on over where Infinity War starts.
That's where the show ends?
Well, that's where one of the seasons ends.
Interesting.
But it doesn't work. So. And then they just give up and don't mention anything. They don't mention the blip. They don't mention coming back from the blip.
Yeah, I don't think I could sit down and watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. based on the first episode.
You need someone with you, probably. Just enjoy with someone.
Maybe. Because, again, I have plans to rewatch all these Marvel movies again. One day. So, to interlace Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with this would make it more bearable.
Oh, you mean like put in a schedule?
Kind of.
Like a timeline of which episodes to watch?
Yes.
That exists already. I can send that to you.
Okay. Sweet. I mean, I think so. What I do is that we hit Loki, multiverse stuff. That's when I watch the Spider-Man movies. That's when I watch the X-Men movies, and that's when I watch the last, I don't know, 2 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Sure.
But also, there's a pocket of time, essentially before the Doctor Strange movie. I forget. I think it's like between essentially Civil War and Doctor Strange, where there's like a pocket of time when I feel comfortable. I'm not planning to watch the
the Netflix shows, but that's when I would throw them in if I just want to throw them into a timeline.
Because the Netflix shows are part of a list that I've seen, even though the Netflix shows don't ever reference any movies that come out at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They only ever reference the first Avengers movie. And that's it.
I do not believe they're canon. I do not believe they're canon.
Oh, me neither. But
if I wanted to throw them into a spot, that's where I would throw them in.
They're fun to help give you context for characters.
Mm-hmm. Especially for them.
Especially Daredevil is like, if you only ever watch one of the shows, Daredevil is the one I would say.
I really want to watch Jessica Jones.
The first season specifically.
Yes.
Because, like, she has the scariest villain.
Yes.
Of the MCU.
Not of the MCU, but yes. Because it's not MCU.
Well, at the time, like, he was the scariest
I'm just
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Even the scariest in Marvel in general.
I believe.
Like, who's always in other medium, like in cartoons, he's always underutilized. Mm. But here they do him so well that he's just so scary.
I really. Again, I am not at the point where I'm comfortable.
Definitely not Jessica Jones.
Huh?
Definitely not Jessica Jones.
Oh, really?
Because that's a little bit a different step from Daredevil.
Well, the thing is, I don't feel comfortable watching. Definitely not. Is it Defender or Punisher? I forget which one. Definitely
Punisher.
Not those. Punisher.
Definitely not Punisher.
Although
that's still a good show.
I was reading someone online, and she's like, "I'm a fan of this kind of thing, but Punisher took it to the next level." And she was like, "Even I was wincing at parts." Anyways,
sure.
That's just one person, but I'm like, oh wow.
Actually, I mean, one of the Daredevil movies. Sorry, one of the Punisher movies is much worse than what we see in the show.
Really?
My gosh, like, I was shocked when watching that movie. It's like, what? That's so gross. But
again, if there's anything I want to see most out of all that, it'd be that first season of Jessica Jones.
Yeah, because after that, you get more. It's more disappointing for me after the first season.
If I was able to handle Logan Muir.
Yeah, I mean, if you can handle Logan, then you can handle Daredevil. At least the first season, for sure.
Okay. I'll think about it.
Jessica Jones, there is one really, really dark moment that I don't think you can handle. There's a couple dark ones, actually. But, but one explicit one.
Isn't there a difference between dark and gore?
Gore is one.
Gore, that's what you mean. Okay.
This gore, I can describe it to you. Very simply. Okay. A blender.
What about that?
You know, like a blender you mix.
Yeah, I know.
Blender.
Yeah.
Body part.
Makes sense.
Blood.
But with Daredevil, it's more consistent throughout the whole show of things happening, right?
Sure, but with Daredevil, especially in the first season, it's more in the same pace as like the Wolverine, I should say.
Really? So you'd equate the two?
Yes, maybe a tiny bit stepping closer to Logan, but it doesn't really go full Logan until the second season. Because that's when Punisher comes in, and that's when it really stuff happens.
Okay.
Stuff happens.
I'll keep that in mind for this next time I keep hyping up.
But like I said, like you shouldn't watch the Netflix shows without someone there to advise you.
You want to watch them together?
Heck, man, I would love, but you know,
I would probably, again, just based on your recommendations, just the Daredevil and Jessica Jones first seasons. That's probably as far as I would go.
yeah, that's probably all you need. You know,
Defenders?
the
How
others are
was
so good.
Defenders?
Defenders
Because here's the
was
thing, I would want to watch the others if I'm going to watch Defenders, but I'm just curious
see
your thoughts on
Defenders. It really depends. I liked it, but like it was really a mixture of so many different genres. Because like you had to mix all 4 shows together.
Mhm.
And they each had their moments.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, the best interaction was with Daredevil. He's the best part of the show. He has the best cast. And so whenever they focused on like their side characters, everyone said that the Daredevil side characters just shined so much more than the others, that they were the only ones that they cared for.
Mhm.
I mean, Defenders is a much shorter show.
8 episodes, right?
8, yeah. Even though 13 is like not far off, but
Mm-hmm.
8 episodes. If you're ever to get to season 3 of Daredevil, like Defenders is important.
Okay. Yeah, I almost would want to watch Logan in color before hitting the Netflix shows.
I would suggest that probably, yeah.
And that messes up my... Nah, I could throw in Netflix shows in my multiverse section. Like after Logan. I could do that.
Sure.
I would
mean-
throw the Cloak and Dagger and Runaways in my pre-Doctor Strange period.
I have not watched them, so I can't say anything about them.
I enjoyed Cloak and Dagger.
Okay.
So if you ever get to that, I'm curious. But Cloak and Dagger is only on Hulu,
Hulu, yeah.
and Runaways is on both Hulu and Disney Plus. Runaways, I will say, has a cameo episode, one of those crossover episodes with Cloak and Dagger.
Then there's Legion.
Yeah, that's not high priority.
No, like it's definitely not any priority at all. But Legion is interesting. The first episode is the only thing I'd say, because it's a drug trip. That's what that show is. That show is a drug trip. Anyone would tell you it's a drug trip. It really is.
The art already looks like a drug trip.
It's something, but it's pretty cool. Yeah. Even though Legion is not on the top of any list, it's like its own thing. You don't need anything. You don't need to worry about Legion at all. Unless for some reason they just decide to plop in Legion for just no reason. Which
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
I feel like if they
But that's
did,
a good actor that they could bring in.
Hmm.
It wouldn't make any sense, but that's a good actor to use.
And then they had one other spin-off show. It's a Hailstorm or something?
Yeah, Hellblaze.
I don't think
Hailstorm,
there's Blaze.
Well, Hellstorm, Hellblaze. It's Hell something.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that really. It's
Not really on my
It's
radar
more.
to
It's
watch.
more their magical thing. It's like equivalent to the mysticism in Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider. I wonder if they're going to do anything with that.
People want him to appear in Multiverse of Madness.
I would love that. Ghost Rider is so cool. How would they fit him?
I am hearing, though, Hugh Jackman is not in Multiverse of Madness.
I can Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I want to see him, but I'm also
Mhm.
like, Logan was his last film. Even though I think that he would be open to appear on the MCU.
I feel like it
Because I
would
believe
have
he
to.
has stated that, like, if he was offered to be in the MCU, he probably would do something with that.
I feel like it's the RDJ situation where it's like it has to be the right time. Which obviously
This would be the only time.
Secret Wars.
Mm,
Marvel wants Tobey and Andrew back for that.
yeah.
I don't know much anything about Secret Wars except that it's multiverse something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
We'll
saying, like
we'll
that.
see.
Because let's be realistic, Secret Wars is not happening for like 10 years. By that time, Logan and RDJ have been out of Marvel for 10 years. That's better than them appearing 2 years later, essentially, in Multiverse of Madness.
Right, but I think for Hugh Jackman specifically, like this would be a better time for him to get into his body shape. Because he's getting older. It becomes more difficult for him to get into that body shape.
True.
Like he says, like, oh, it's so nice to just be done with Wolverine. Like I don't have to be so jacked up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is a long podcast.
It is. Did it hit? Did we surpass the previous podcast?
Yes, we did. By a
What?
lot. By a lot, actually.
Yeah, this is longer than Infinity War.
It is.
The last episode was like Infinity War length, right?
Yes, now we're the longest podcast. Like, we didn't even mean it to be. We're just talking about the X-Men movies, and we're almost 3 hours in. It's crazy.
Oh.
I didn't even realize that. Sorry for you listeners who are not even listening at this point.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I have to say, to rewatch the MCU movies or Marvel movies, dare I say, and I watched the road cut, watched all cuts of the 2 Spider-Man movies, watched Logan in color, interlace Agents of Shield, watch a couple shows or seasons of shows.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It is, but honestly, here's the thing: I don't want in asterisk, in quotes, I don't want to rewatch the MCU. You know what I mean?
Correct.
To throw in all this is going to make it where I want to.
Mm.
Not to mention, I want to watch the behind-the-scenes stuff of the MCU movies, which I'm excited about.
Okay.
Is this something I'm planning to do soon? No. I honestly may one of these days just randomly watch Days of Future Past. But my thoughts is I don't really plan on doing this until after, if you come, until after we watch Star Wars.
Okay.
That's because there's part of me where I'm anxious to do it, and there's part of me that does not want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking about rewatching MCU. Star Wars, kind of the same thing, but in a different manner. But after I, throw myself into a different universe for a bit, then I'll miss the MCU and want to go back and fun stuff.
I could probably come as soon as May.
Fun. That makes. I want to. Here's the thing. When I get into Star Wars world, I want to enjoy my time in that. And also, I'm going to be tempted as heck to rewatch it soon. You know what I mean?
To rewatch it soon after?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, go for it.
Specifically because of Clone Wars.
Okay. Like, finish the episodes you didn't see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then get disappointed by the sequel trilogy.
What? Well, I mean,
I have to watch them eventually.
yeah, no, eventually. It's not that. But it's also like, well, you kind of have to get into Rebels.
Yeah, no. The second time through Star Wars is the time to watch everything.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
And there's Resistance. Okay.
Oh, there's another thing?
Resistance?
Resistance?
Resistance is... no. Resistance is no.
We'll talk about this when we get there.
We'll talk about this later. But yeah, it's just not a great show.
But it apparently adds stuff to everything.
It does not.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay. We'll see. Maybe I don't watch that. We'll see.
You don't have to watch it, but the finale of the first season takes place during one of the movies.
Which movie?
Force Awakens.
The seventh one.
Yes, and The Last Jedi.
That's it. Yeah. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, if I'm gonna watch Star Wars, I'm gonna get to the sequel.
You're going to get the most out of your money.
Yeah. As disappointing as it's gonna be, you know?
Disappointing. Oh. Okay, I mean, you might enjoy the sequels more
That's the thing.
than like someone who has years leading up to it.
I think that's gonna be the thing.
Yeah.
Fortunately and unfortunately, you know what I mean?
But
Because
we'll see.
I'm a bit of a product of the MCU. I don't like movies. The MCU gravitates towards me. I'm honestly more of a fan of said modern style. Most of Star Wars is pre-MCU.
Yes, but like sequel stuff is pushing, especially like the last one is more modern style. Like
Yeah.
they have like a moment that just rips off Endgame, which I really don't like because it doesn't work.
The portal scene.
No, the I am Iron Man bit.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not as much as that is still a moment. It is such an MCU moment. You know,
Mm.
like it's just like, or more even than an MCU moment. It's a movie moment. Whenever we have that suspension moment. You know how the bad guy circles the girl 20 times before deciding to finally kill her, and that's when the good guy breaks through the wall, kind of moment.
Sure.
You know, that's one thing where I really struggle with movies, where it suspends things it doesn't have to make it work for the movie. Because in most cases, I would believe the villain would be so full of rage that they would have slaughtered the girl 20 minutes before the good guy got there.
Correct.
I don't know.
But anyway, this is almost 3 hours long. We really shouldn't be ending this off. So, any last final thoughts before we go?
Let's make this as long as Endgame.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening,
Oh my
and we'll
gosh.
see you all next time.
Bye.